Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Welcome back, everybody. I'll tell you what, I'm going to start right here with this. I always find moments like this, again, to be remarkably fascinating when it comes to a particular news story, of course, and then everybody gravitates toward it, and then how quickly everybody seems to sort of do the same thing over and over again, or suggest that everybody do the same thing over and over again. With the entire Trump trial, which we know is completely illegal and 1,000 other things. Not to mention, of course, he's still the commander-in-chief and he can clearly pull that card anytime that he wants. I always find it interesting that when a particular judgment comes down, which we knew it would be guilty, by and large, I mean, why wouldn't it be? That's why they set up the entire trial in the first place. They didn't set it up so he'd be innocent. Of course, he is innocent, but either way. With all that aside, it's interesting that when a very predictable ruling comes down, just the way that everybody behaves and the way that everybody panics and a number of other things. And of course, not everybody was, which was great. A lot of people, again, can see this for exactly what it is. They know he's protected. They know he's insulated. And that's just, again, that's also my take as well. But the trends I find fascinating. And there was one that was bouncing around on social media where people were like, put your flags upside down and, we're a fallen nation and this, that, and the other. You should never turn your flag upside down. I don't recommend anybody do that at any time, not on a flagpole, not not on social media, which is beyond cliche, I think. It's just absurd. It's no different than the individuals putting those whatever it was, the black background during Black Lives Matter on their Instagram accounts. It's just so pathetic. Again, think as an individual. Do what you'd like, but don't follow the group and don't follow the crowd. The second trend, which I found fascinating again, was individuals donating money to Donald Trump. Again, he doesn't need our money. And this is the way, again, that all American elections should run. There shouldn't be donations. There shouldn't be, we need your money so that we can do this and we can do that. Again, there's just no need for it. Endless presidents in the United States were more than able to run for president of the United States and even win an election without any amount of money, certainly this amount of money, being thrown their way. It didn't have to happen. It didn't have to happen back then. It's just a trend now. It's just a trend. And there are people, again, who open up their wallets and just throw copious amounts of dollars at Donald Trump or Joe Biden or anybody. And it just, to me, seems 100% unnecessary. Again, people seem to fall for that trick on a constant basis. Again, let me give you an example. Of course, there was Tim Pool out there bragging about it. I gave you, this amount of money or whatever it was. It was a copious amount of cash. And same thing with Dan Bongino. I mean, I was listening to Dan Bongino before Trump's press conference on Friday morning. And he was saying the same thing. He's like, look, I gave him as much as I could. I gave him $100,000. I just want everybody to understand that, if you have that kind of money, you should do the same. But of course, I'm not telling people what to do and blah, blah, blah. And I know times are tough and, people are having a hard time buying groceries and this and that. Just give what you can if you can and, whatever else. But at the very least, vote for the man and blah, blah, blah. Of course. I mean, of course, people are going to vote for him. There's no doubt about it. I am too. Endless people will. And again, hopefully it's being clearly watched and it's not going to be stolen by the media this time and a number of other things. But at the exact same time, we don't need to play some competitive game on how much money we're giving to Donald Trump or any campaign for that matter. Again, they're buying influence. I mean, if you look at it that way, they're really just buying influence, which seems odd to me because isn't that what the enemy does? Again, Donald Trump was on Tim Pool's show before the conviction, and then the conviction comes down, and then afterwards, Tim Pool gives him, what was it, at least $100,000? Probably more than that. It just seems odd, that's all. I just think the whole thing seems very weird. I don't understand the entire trend of campaign donations or contributions, whatever word you want to use. Again, it just seems to me that it's one of those things that just blows up and it becomes a giant competition of some kind. Well, I gave more and I gave more and no, you didn't. I gave more and just this unnecessary back and forth. If he was really in dire straits for money, He could sell some of his property. He could sell some of his golf courses. He could sell anything he wanted. So I don't get it. Again, it might be even tax deductible if it's a donation, right? Isn't that how that works? So, I mean, I really have no idea. The whole thing just seems odd to me. So, I don't know. You're never going to see me cutting checks for presidential campaigns, and I'm certainly not going to hang a flag upside down. It's completely unnecessary, and I've always felt things like that are unnecessary, but there you go. Either way, again, he's completely insulated. He's the commander-in-chief. Many Americans have no idea that that's the case. In fact, being the commander-in-chief and signing the Insurrection Act was actually his lawful duty. He had to do that on January 6th of 2021. He had a lawful responsibility to sign that away because he, of course, was the president of the United States still at the time, and he was watching the election be stolen and knew that it was stolen, knew that the media stole it, knew that Joe Biden was claiming to be the president when clearly he wasn't, and that was the entire sting operation. And it went down smoothly, and it went down perfectly. Why people can't even see that, let alone discuss it, frankly. I mean, again, I don't know what conversations Tim Pool has or doesn't have, but how often has he brought that up on his show? That Donald Trump had a lawful duty to sign the Insurrection Act, thereby giving the entire administration over to the military to then have the right to surveil whoever they wanted to surveil, who had anything to do with stealing this election or pretending that Joe Biden's really the president or a number of other things. I mean, he had a lawful duty to do it, and he did it. I think, again, back then there was ample evidence that that was the case. He even said so on that Twitter video when he basically told everybody to go home, and he started using the word insurrection. And then, of course, what did the enemy do? Well, the enemy started using the word insurrection, that Donald Trump's an insurrectionist. Well, if they always blame us for the thing that they're doing, then there was an illegal insurrection, which means, again, he signed the act, he became the commander-in-chief, the military's running the whole thing behind the scenes, while, again, everybody's being led along to make it look like, yeah, the election was stolen and Joe Biden's not really the president. And, most Americans certainly understand that. But then, of course, you have this fraction of America who actually thinks that Joe Biden won. I mean, that's embarrassing. You talk about being ill-informed and having no idea what's happening. It's certainly those individuals. But again, he's completely insulated. He is the commander-in-chief. He has the Secret Service around him all of the time wherever he goes. And yeah, I understand it's that way with ex-presidents too, but you've seen his motorcades. They're enormous. I mean, they're massive. When he travels from point A to point B, they're absolutely huge. No one travels like that. Nobody. George Bush, Barack Obama, they don't travel like that. They don't have those giant motorcades, no chance. So again, now I hear, of course, that they're trying to take the Secret Service away from him, in particular if he goes to jail, which I find absolutely hilarious. I can't imagine that actually happening. And again, it's just going to continue to piss off people who are watching this like they're basically believing the movie. I don't know. I just find the whole thing comical, but I don't fall for these trends. I mean, I certainly try not to. Just because one person's doing one thing or a group of people are doing one thing, it doesn't mean you have to do it. If you sit back and you watch, you can actually see just sort of all of these normie individuals just fall for it every single time. There's more going on here than what any of us can possibly understand, but at the exact same time, I have faith that, that good things are going to happen. And there's only so much that we can control, of course. But, yeah, I don't know. I'll just kind of leave it at that. I just found the whole thing a bit odd. People were panicking and other people were asking everybody's questions like, how pissed are you on a scale of 1 to 10? It's like, settle down. Settle down. Everybody's fine. We're all okay. Everything's going to be okay. I want to mention this too, because again, while people were, of course, paying attention to that and all wrapped up in that, what they ended up missing, which is something I'll bring up later, of course, is that the pandemic treaty did go through regarding the WHO. Again, everybody was just kind of ignoring that for some reason and forgetting that June 1st, was the last day of their conference, and that's the way that all went down. And again, I'll get to this a little bit later, but This is from James Roguski, something like that. My apologies for mispronouncing his name. But on his Substack, he wrote this article on June 1st, and it says the amendments to the IHR have been adopted. The 77th World Health Assembly, HAS, adopted a substantial package of amendments to the international health regulations. We the people have suffered a stunning defeat. The battle continues. Again, this is exactly what I said would happen. Just because a couple of people put out a headline a week or so ago and they say, well, don't worry, the WHO's been defeated and we won because they couldn't come to some agreement. That's not how these organizations work. It's not how they operate. They're going to move forward with something in the future here regarding some kind of illness. They're not making these vaccines, quote unquote, just to waste them. They're not they're not going through their script and their playbook, which again, you can read those documents on my website under the Government Documents tab. They're all right there. They don't build those documents for show. They don't build those documents to not follow them. They build them on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to keep moving forward with it. But again, I'll mention that a little bit later, but I just wanted to kind of tie that in just very quickly with the Trump thing, because again, everybody was focused on that, instead of the fact that medical tyranny is actually on the books in the United States as United States law, and at the exact same time, the globalist agenda continues to move forward. So, instead of taking surveys online, measuring your level of disgust between 1 and 10, if people stopped getting distracted with, Alex Jones crying on his television show and whining about, how the feds are going to shut him down. I mean, he's been saying that for the last 8 months. And why has he been saying it, and why does he say it? He says it because he's trying to profit also on the outrage that exists from Donald Trump. So Donald Trump's profiting from it, but Alex Jones would like to profit from it too. So, he fake cries on TV and says they're going to shut us down, they're going to shut us down. Well, they can't legally. I mean, they can't shut him down. But again, you have these opportunists out there just doing whatever it is that they're doing. I'm not saying that people aren't attacking him. I'm certain that they are. But again, don't get distracted. There's so many things that are out there purposely to distract us, and even the so-called good guys are doing a lot of the distracting. I just don't find it productive. It just seems odd to me. So again, there's always going to be opportunists out there, and there's always going to be individuals trying to take advantage of people's emotions and people's level of attention and 1,000 other things, but I don't know. I'm not falling for it. So there you go. Okay, let me mention this. I came across this. This is the education topic that I have for this particular episode here. It's rather odd, and I find it absolutely laughable, to be frank. This is a particular pamphlet, and it's rather large, so I'm sure at some point this was maybe a giant poster of some kind. But this comes from the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And they put out this giant poster that is titled at the very top, and I'm going to read the whole thing from top to bottom, so bear with me, because again, you're going to find this remarkably ironic. It's titled Talking About Race, from the NMAAHC. And it says, Aspects and Assumptions of Whiteness and White Culture in the United States. So they, of course, are creating a definition regarding whiteness and what all of this means, and it actually reads like an absolute joke, because the things that they are claiming that we enjoy, or that white people enjoy, they're claiming that they're bad. And I can't actually believe that I'm going to read this. This is ridiculous. So here's what it says. It says, quote, white dominant culture, or whiteness, refers to the ways white people and their traditions, attitudes, and ways of life have been normalized over time and are now considered standard practices in the United States. And since white people still hold most of the institutional power in America, we have all internalized some aspect of white culture, including people of color. Again, I don't even know where to begin. All of that's rather hilarious. I don't know why they think that white individuals hold all of the power in the United States, in America. I don't know where that comes from. We know that that's not the case. But this is absolutely hilarious. So here's the first category, basically, and they have a number of different categories regarding, again, society and what apparently whites enjoy, which we certainly do. And this, by the way, is something that almost everybody should enjoy, but they seem to think that it's a bad thing. So the first one is titled Rugged Individualism. And there's 4 bullet points here, and the first one says the individual is the primary unit. The second one is self-reliance. The third one is independence and autonomy, highly valued plus rewarded. And then the fourth one is individuals assumed to be in control of their environment. Quote, you get what you deserve, unquote. Again, they're acting like all of that's bad. Why is any of that bad? I mean, we know why. Whoever created this is creating excuses and trying to, again, just completely invert reality, flip it around, and then try to sell it to people like that's actually a bad thing. The next one is family structure. There's 4 bullet points. It says the nuclear family, father, mother, 2.3 children is the ideal social unit. The second one is husband is breadwinner and head of household. The third one, wife is homemaker and subordinate to the husband. The fourth one, children should have own rooms, be independent. Again, what's wrong with that? Anything wrong with that? Again, I like the word subordinate there, that the wife is the homemaker and subordinate to the husband. They purposefully put that in there to make it sound like, the husband is going to be some controlling asshole. It's just nuts. Here's the next one. But I mean, I like all of it. But again, their word selection is purposely divisive. That's exactly what they're doing here. The next one is emphasis on scientific method. This is funny. Remember, these are bad things. These are things that they hate, that they think are all, the things that white people do, basically. And only them, and we need to get rid of this. The first bullet point is objective, rational, linear thinking. The second one is cause and effect relationships. And the third one is quantitative emphasis. Again, when it comes to the scientific method, they think that's all a bad thing. Thinking is a bad thing. I got nothing on this. This is beyond ridiculous. The next one, history. This is funny. 3 bullet points based on Northern European immigrants' experience in the United States. The next one is heavy focus on the British Empire. And the third one is the primacy of Western, Greek, Roman, and Judeo-Christian tradition. Now, I don't know where the Judeo-Christian part comes in, but either way, yeah, not a bad thing. Still not a bad thing. The next one, Protestant work ethic. 3 bullet points. Hard work is the key to success. Second one is work before play. And then the third one, quote, if you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough, unquote. I don't know about that last one. There are other circumstances that cause people to not attain the things that they want or reach a particular status, that they certainly are interested in. But, I mean, my God. Hard work's a bad thing, ladies and gentlemen. Dedication is a bad thing. The next one, religion. Christianity is the norm. The next one says anything other than Judeo-Christian tradition is foreign. And then the third one, no tolerance for deviation from single God concept. Well, it's kind of a fact. So good luck with whatever you're doing, but I can't believe that they actually think that they speak for all African Americans or Black Americans. This is absolutely nuts. Or just Americans. I mean, who do they actually think they're speaking for here? It's wild. We're not done. Status, power, and authority is the next one. The first one says wealth equals worth. The next one, your job is who you are. The third one is respect authority. And the fourth one is heavy value on ownership of goods, space, and property. Again, they're painting with very broad brushes here. The next one says future orientation. Plan for the future, delayed gratification, progress is always best, and, quote, tomorrow will be better, unquote. Again, still trying to figure out what's wrong with that. The next one is time. This is hilarious. Because again, the stereotype, of course, is that some individuals are late on a constant basis. So they have to put this in. Follow rigid time schedules is the first one, and the second one is time viewed as a commodity. Honestly, it's so insulting. This is so insulting to anybody reading this. People actually got in a boardroom and put this together and thought it was real. I can't believe it. I mean, I can, because they're nuts, but this is wild. Here's the next one. Aesthetics. 4 bullet points. Based on European culture is the first one. Steak and potatoes, bland is best, quote unquote. Okay. The third one. Woman's beauty based on blonde, thin, quote unquote, Barbie. And then the third one, man's attractiveness based on economic status, power, and intellect. So apparently we're not allowed to have standards. And we're not allowed to have taste, apparently, as far as they're concerned anyway. The next one is holidays. Based on Christian religions is the first one, and the second one is based on white history and male leaders. Yeah. Jesus Christ, basically. That's about it. Let's see. Justice. Here's the next one. The justice system. Based on English common law, protect property and entitlements, and intent counts. Interesting. Well, yeah, intent does matter, doesn't it? Competition. Here we go. Competition. This is actually the largest list in the entire thing is the competition portion of this. It says number 1, be number 1. The second one is win at all costs. The third one is winner-loser dichotomy. The fourth one is action orientation. The fifth one is master and control nature. The sixth one is must always do something about the situation. The seventh one is aggressiveness and extroversion. The eighth one is decision-making, and the ninth one is majority rules when whites have power, in parentheses. Unbelievable. Here's the last one. The last one is communication. It says the King's English, quote-unquote, rules. Yeah, I mean, we speak English. The next one, written tradition. The next one says avoid conflict, intimacy. The next one says don't show emotion. The next one says don't discuss personal life. And then the last one, be polite. all of that's wrong, apparently. The fact that we care about speaking English, and again, this is insulting to any American regardless of race, but that we care about speaking English, writing English, that we avoid conflict / intimacy, not sure what that means, don't show emotion. I don't know where they get off thinking that necessarily. Don't discuss personal life. Well, it's not everybody's business. Some of us just like being private. That's a good thing. And then being polite. The fact that that's the last one. Again, we have standards. Everybody should have standards and follow them. But according to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, everything that I just read is a bad thing. It blows me away. Absolutely comical. All right, now let me get to this. I came across this chart. This is certainly jab related, but more specifically, it has to do with radio frequencies and electromagnetic frequencies and EMF radiation. And this is, again, a great chart, and like I said, I put it in the last war video, but this particular chart I wanted to read through because it really is just an excellent history lesson. So on the left-hand side of this column, again, imagine 3 separate columns. On the left, you have the time period. In the middle, you have what was happening at the time. And then on the right-hand side, you have what they have listed here as the possible implications. So again, when it comes to radio frequency and electromagnetic frequency advances and correlating epidemics and pandemics, that's the title of this chart. And here's what it says. The first one is, of course, the time period, and this is the first time period that they have listed here, where it says previous 3 centuries, before the 1800s. It says what was happening. Peaks in solar sunspot magnetic activity on roughly 11-year cycle. I'm just going to take them for their word on it. I don't know if that has any correlation or not. But anyway, and then it moves on and it says possible implications. It says correlated with epidemics by various astrobiological journals. Again, I have no proof of that, but what I do know is that when it came to illness and what was happening during the time, certainly again during the founding of our country and even before then, when illness took place and existed, it usually had to do with a lack of cleanliness. It was a hygiene thing. Or again, it was bad food or ill-prepared food. So, same thing today. I mean, same kinds of things happen today, but that was certainly one of the major causes of illness back then. And then, of course, just flat out poisoning. People just poisoning one another, poisoning wells, doing a number of other different things, drinking sources and eating sources and whatever. So the next time period that they have listed here is the 1800s. What was happening at the time? Telegraph lines and man-made stray EMF current begins. Correct. And that right there is when you first really started getting quote-unquote flu symptoms. And as I've read before on the show from the book Truth About Contagion by Dr. Thomas Cowan, that particular book lays it out perfectly and lays out the history. The telegraph lines first went up on army bases across the United States, and it was the army individuals that were getting sick first. And again, they had flu-like symptoms. So unfortunately, you're going to see a pattern here, but most of this has to do with technology. And as we know, it's been weaponized against us for a very long time. Because at the end of the chart, well, there's your COVID right there, quote unquote. So it says, again, what are the possible implications? It says reports of mass neurasthenia, quote unquote, sickness from electricity. And if I'm pronouncing the word correctly, it basically means, which I'm probably not, but it basically means a plethora of symptoms, basically flu-like symptoms. The next time period they have listed here is 1889. Again, what was happening during that time? That was the full-scale electrification of America. And then the possible implications is in 1889 through 1890, you had the flu pandemic, quote unquote, where 1 million died. The next time period is 1904. Radio transmitters established for transatlantic communication. And then what was the possible implication? In 1915 through 1926, you had encephalitis lethargica, if I'm saying that right. The pandemic, basically, or a pandemic, aka the sleeping sickness, quote unquote, and then it has listed here 1.5 million dead. The next time period is 1915, historical increase in telephone lines. And then again, what was the possible implication? 1915 operators report higher percentage of flu-like symptoms. The next time period is 1914 through 1918, which was World War I. What was going on at the time? It says increase of high-powered radio transmitters beginning on military bases, then spread worldwide. It says possible implications, 1918 through 1920, the Spanish flu begins at the Naval Radio School of Cambridge, Massachusetts, 100 million dead worldwide. The next time period is 1957 through 1958, post-World War II. What was going on? Installation of worldwide radar surveillance system. Possible implications, Asian flu, 2 million dead. Soviet scientists report RF-altering electrocardiograms. The next time period they have here is 1963. What was going on at the time? U.S. Office of Spectrum Management assigns radio frequency band allocations. And then the possible implications, 1964 Epstein-Barr virus on the rise. So again, you can see what's happening here. It's the implementation of technology, and then it's a made-up name associated with symptoms that people are receiving, and they're calling it something different, so that ultimately, of course, government and the medical industry and pharmaceutical industry can profit from calling symptoms a different name, when theoretically, they're all generally the same kinds of symptoms. They're just giving them different names and then warning people and stirring up panic and controlling that entire narrative. The next one was 1968 through 1969. What was going on at the time was the installation of major military satellites. Now again, we know that satellites aren't real, by and large, but again, it was more technology, more towers, more radio towers, things of that nature. And then, of course, the particular implication they have listed here is the Hong Kong flu, or H3N2, where 1 million apparently died. The next time period is 1979 through 1984. What was going on at the time was the first 1G wireless cellular network nationwide, car phones. And then, of course, what was the implication as far as people's health were concerned? The mid to late 1970s into the 1980s, AIDS, along with hepatitis C vaccine, untold millions dead. That's well done. That's very well done. And that's worth people certainly taking into consideration. The entire wireless network and the implementation of that falling in the exact same timeline as quote-unquote HIV. And again, we know that weakened immune systems certainly during that time weren't just wireless radiation, but of course it was also vaccination, and it was poisoning. Of course, the media and everybody, certainly in culture, would lead people to believe that it was rampant sexual activity. That's why people were dying. That's not true. There was no HIV virus, and it wasn't sexually transmitted. But, of course, electromagnetic radiation is transmittable just by being around individuals. And if individuals are poisoning themselves with drugs and injectable drugs or inhalants and a number of other drugs, well, yeah, you're going to wreck your DNA, ruin your immune system, and then you're going to have quote-unquote AIDS. That's the way that works. Here's the next time period, 1991. That's when the 2G cellular network rollout begins. And then the health implications here, I think they made a typo. But statistics show, it says, diseases increase as electrification grids are implemented. Again, the wireless network is just getting bigger. The next time period they have is 1993, 1994, and 1998. What was going on during that time? It says the HARP facilities begin, cell phone technology begins, and first satellites for space telephony. And then the health implications they have listed here is that in 1994, UK classifies common sparrow as an endangered species. So birds are dying. That's not good either. 1996, dramatic increase of cardiac arrest cases in young athletes. Interesting. By the way, anybody noticing a decline in birds wherever you live? Is that still going on? Certainly seems to be the case with some species anyway, around where I live. Anywho, moves on here with the next timeline. This is 2001 through 2003, 2007, and then 2009 through 2010. We had the 3G rollout begins. The iPhone rollout, of course, began as well. And then the 4G rollout begins and continues. And what are the health implications here? There are many of them. It says in 2002 through 2004, severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, 1,000 dead. 2009 through 2010, H1N1/09, up to 500,000 dead. 2010, avian influenza, or AH7N9. In 2012, you had MERS, MERS-CoV, 858 deaths. In 2013, you had Ebola, 11,000 dead. In 2013, you had, through 2016 rather, you also had the Zika virus, quote unquote. And then in 2015, swine flu, with 2,000 dead. And then their last timeline here is 2019 through 2020. 5G rollout begins. And then health implications, you have COVID-19, 30,000 possible dead of this report. And again, this is clearly a very early chart. This was early in 2020 when somebody built this chart, but it's well done. Again, a nice history lesson, and it's all right here. As we know, it's endless more dead, and it was the hospitals actually doing the killing. Now, of course, we have a biological weapon masquerading as a preventative medicine in the form of a COVID vaccine, quote unquote, and that's what people are really dying from now. But yeah, you have 5G, no doubt about it, and you have the implementation of 6G. So if you were to add another chart here, you could say 2021 through 2024, You could say 5G rollout continues, 6G implementation continues, radioactive cell phone creation continues. You could certainly say weaponization of wireless radiation continues. More 5G towers going up in the dead of night from three-letter agencies, that certainly continues. And then, of course, you have the weaponization of a vaccine, which all vaccines are weapons, but certainly in this particular case, and again, the rollout of a biological weapon. With what is it, upwards of 75 to 85% of the world's population taking those shots? So there you have it. That's the health implication, with untold tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, dead worldwide. So, yeah, this is happening. This is going to continue to happen. And until these towers start coming down, or they're completely disabled, that right there, too, is one of the things that we're just going to have to see. We're going to have to see that take place. We're going to have to see those towers come down in order for us to understand that things are changing. When we start driving around and we don't see those towers anymore, and they're not going up in the dead of night or hidden inside of a cactus someplace, again, until those towers come down, we're going to know that things are going in a bad direction. But we have to see them come down, and that has to be part of it. So there you go. Little history lesson there I thought was kind of interesting. Okay. Let me mention this. This is rather interesting too. Of all of the governments around the world that are actually doing a great deal of apologizing regarding the shots, it happens to be Japan. There's a lot of news coming out of Japan, again, regarding their government fully understanding that the jab rollout was a colossal mistake, copious amounts of people dying in Japan as a result of the shot rollout. I believe that they had the highest population, or percentage rather, of individuals in their population who took the shots. Their economy is also struggling greatly. Their currency is struggling greatly. And the Jewish lobby continues to stick their fingers in Japan and try to control as much as they can whenever they can. And they are certainly the target of the Jewish lobby. And they're doing whatever they can, of course, to destroy that country and that culture. So keep your eyes peeled for more Japanese news. This is something I think that that is certainly coming down the line. It's not a good thing. And I think that it's pretty fair to say that the Jewish lobby wants their entire culture destroyed. And they want to take over that country as much as they possibly can, the way that they have, of course, America and other countries. So Japan is the prize for many individuals, certainly the money lenders, as it were. So I just wanted to mention that kind of quickly. There's also this. This is from Futurism.com, and it was titled Thousands of Patients to be Given World's First Cancer Vaccine. The jab uses the same mRNA technology as the Pfizer COVID vaccine. Again, who in the hell would actually take this? It says the United Kingdom's National Health Service, NHS, is fast-tracking patients for its upcoming cancer vaccine trials, and each one will be tailored to every individual's need. Well, that right there should prove to you that it's not going to work, it's just going to kill. It says, as The Guardian reports, patients who meet eligibility criteria need only sign off on having their blood and tissues sampled to gain immediate access to the vaccine trial, which will use cutting-edge mRNA technology to customize each jab to the DNA of the people getting them. That's right. The same shots that cause cancer are now being given to individuals under the guise of it actually curing cancer. The NHS told the newspaper that dozens of people have already been enrolled in the program called the Cancer Vaccine Launchpad, quote-unquote. Well, things explode on a launch pad, don't they? And thousands more will be able to get into the trials at 30 sites around the UK. To start, the agency is looking for patients with bladder, colorectal, kidney, lung, skin, and pancreatic cancers, but more types will be added as the program progresses. It says, quote, as more of these trials get up and running at hospitals across the country, explained NHS England head Amanda Pritchard, quote, our national matchmaking service will ensure as many eligible patients as possible get the opportunity to access them. I hope that individuals, again, are hearing this and understanding that these governments are continuing to move forward. They aren't slowing down. They're not stopping. They're continuing to roll this out. Like I said at the top of the show, it's in their paperwork. They pay people to do these things, to scheme, meddle, and figure out how they can kill individuals by even tricking people into actually believing that such a shot would cure cancer or would actually remove toxic cells out of the body or reduce the size of tumors, however you want to phrase it. That the actual shot itself is made up of still the same things that are actually causing the cancer. Again, you have to have a number of brainwashed individuals to continue to go along with this, actually believing that they're helping when in fact they're not. It goes on here, and it says, announced ahead of the American Society of Clinical Oncology, or ASCO, conference in Chicago, the NHS program is working in tandem with German vaccine maker BioNTech, whose mRNA COVID-19 vaccines have paved the way for the technology to be applied to all manner of illnesses and diseases. I'm sure it has, because you're never going to have an illness or a disease when you're dead. See, that's the part they're leaving out. You can't get sick or have cancer when you're dead. At the conference, it says, BioNTech is also slated to present preliminary evidence on research suggesting that measuring circulating tumor DNA could help early detection of colorectal cancer, which accounted for an estimated 930,000 deaths globally in 2020 alone. It says the program's first patient, 55-year-old Elliot, good luck with that name, no chance, PFEBVE, doesn't even sound like a real name, is also suffering from colorectal cancer. It says, as The Guardian reports, the man had no symptoms and only learned that he had it during a routine doctor's appointment. Pafurby, no way I get that name, had his cancerous tumor and part of his large intestine removed and went through chemotherapy prior to enrolling in the NHS pilot, which saw him getting the world's first jab of the same type of mRNA vaccine that was used in Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID vaccine. Goodbye, Elliot. Have a nice day. Victoria, good God, these names. Kanuni, Kunene. Can we just get a Smith? Can we get a Victoria Smith one of these days? Sorry, these names, honest to God. The trial's principal investigator told The Guardian that it's too soon to tell if Elliot's cancer had been completely cured, but she is extremely hopeful, quote unquote, about the outcome. Well, you can hope in one hand and shit in the other. See which one fills up first. It goes on, this Victoria gal said, based on the limited data we currently have of the in-body response to the vaccine, this could prove to be a significant and positive development for patients, they told the newspaper, but more data is yet needed as we continue to recruit suitable patients to the trial to establish this further, unquote. They said for his part, the groundbreaking lecturer seemed to be thrilled at the chance to help cure cancer and make history in the process. No, you'll make history, but you're not going to be curing anything other than a person's life. You'll certainly cure that by ending it. And they wrapped up here and said, quote, being a part of this trial has been a really important decision in my life, both for me and my family, Elliot said. Let's see. Having been through the difficulty of diagnosis and debilitating chemotherapy, it felt wonderful to be able to take part in something which could lead to a new way of treating cancer. And if others can benefit from what the trial might discover, then that's great too, unquote. Oh, Elliot, you poor bastard. Elliot, on my website, you're not listening, but on my website there's cancer protocols. The cure for cancer is over the counter, Elliot. It's not a shot. It's ivermectin, fenbendazole, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, soursop tea, lots of different things. And these have cured people's cancer. Oxygen, chlorine dioxide, hello. Honestly, these individuals, they're just, it's not a survivable characteristic. They're just too far gone. It really is that simple. They're too far gone. Now let me play this. This is Tedros. This is Tedros at the conference last week, and he got on stage. He spoke for about 10 minutes. I'm not going to play the full 10 minutes, but I do have this 1-minute clip. And again, Tedros isn't giving up. These people aren't giving up. Like I said earlier, and like you've heard me say a million times, and you know this, they purposefully write all of this down. They pay people to write all of this down. They pay individuals to put all of this information together because, again, they're globalists, and this is exactly what they're trying to do. And again, they're Satanists. These people are trying to reduce the world's population. The only way that they stop doing what they're doing is if they are destroyed. That's the fight here. That's the war that's going on. They're trying to kill us, and the only way that they will cease to exist is if we get rid of them. Until that happens, they're going to keep moving forward with everything that they're moving forward with. So here's Tedros talking about, again, the same thing that he's written down a million times as everybody else has who works around him, trying to increase individuals' vaccine availability, getting more vaccines out there, and then, of course, disparaging the individuals who are quote-unquote anti-vaxxers. So give Tedros a listen in 3, 2, 1.
But you know the serious challenge that's posed by anti-vaxxers, and I think we need to strategize to really push back because vaccines work, vaccines affect adults, and we have the science evidence on our side. I think it's time to be more aggressive in pushing back on anti-vaxxers. I think they use COVID as an opportunity and all the havoc they're creating. Maybe that's one of the messages also I would like to include to whatever I have said.
Again, very quickly, and that was the end of the clip, but very quickly, if you can imagine a car dealership and an individual who runs a car dealership, okay, on your television during a commercial, and they looked at you through your television and they said, "Our cars work. Come on down to Ed's Auto Mall because our cars, well, they work." If that's the slogan of any organization, that the thing that they're pushing works, it works. Vaccines work, so says Tedros. Everybody knows vaccines work. That's not a selling point. People know that they don't work, quote unquote. They don't prevent anything. They only make ill and they only kill. Everyone knows this now. Unfortunately, not everybody, but a great deal of individuals are finally up to date on this. They're well aware of what's happening. They're staying as far away from needles as humanly possible. In fact, they're so desperate, his slogan is, "They work." He's got nothing else. But yes, in their paperwork, they specifically highlight what it is that they need to do to go after the individuals who know what's really going on. That's always in their plan. You even hear the head of the European Union bring that up on a constant basis, that satanic-looking woman with the short haircut, I forget her name, van der Leyen or whatever the hell her name is. Either way, she's always up there talking about misinformation and disinformation, and now we have to get ahead of it. And we have to do whatever we can to prevent misinformation and disinformation, and they give it all these ridiculous names and these ridiculous slogans because they're working extra hard to make sure that the knowledgeable don't have a platform to tell people what's really going on. This is how they, of course, hide the facts. This is how they attempt to hide the facts anyway. So yeah, they're not going to quit. These people won't stop. Not unless they're dead. But even so, someone else will pick up the torch after they're gone and they'll say, well, we have to move on and we have to keep going. These people should be arrested. They should be abolished. They should be executed. They're killing people. And they know what they're doing. I mean, they can say and scream all the way to the rope. They can say whatever they want about how they were just trying to help people. That's all they were trying to do. They're just trying to cure illness. Doesn't matter. Kick the stool out from underneath them and let them swing. That's exactly what has to happen. But until that happens, they're not going to stop. So here's James Roguski's article. Again, it was titled, "The Amendments to the IHR Have Been Adopted." It says the following here, quote, "Unfortunately, this is an enormous loss for, quote unquote, we the people, and a substantial victory for the evil forces that support the system of pharmakia. The recently adopted amendments will facilitate an enormous global buildup of the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex, which seeks to trigger ongoing quote-unquote pandemic emergencies, unquote, that will be made even worse by, quote, relevant health products, unquote. So Article 1 in this is titled, Relevant Health Products means those health products needed to respond to public health emergencies of international concern, including pandemic emergencies, which may include medicines, vaccines, diagnostics, medical devices, vector control products, personal protective equipment, decontamination products, assistive products, antidotes, cell and gene-based therapies, and other health technologies. Now, you may recall, a long time ago, I read through all of these motions and these adoptions and these particular measures and these definitions again of basically the word usage that they use and the wider implication that all of it has. But again, they've adopted this. That's the whole point. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. This is almost too long to even read here, but I will link his article in the description below so that you can give this a read if you're interested and check it out. Again, he's rather specific, which is good. He goes through all the different articles and what they've actually agreed to and what they say they're going to do. And if I was to summarize it, I would basically say that the WHO is strongly encouraging every state government and, of course, country government. So when they say the word states, then they're, of course, implying the country. But that every single government ramp up all of its efforts regarding, again, all of these different measures. And there's one particular section here which is interesting, has to do with surveillance. In fact, that's their first point. It says Article 54 BIS. It says the States Parties Committee for the Implementation of the International Health Regulations of 2005 is hereby established to facilitate the effective implementation of these regulations, in particular, of Article 44 and 44 BIS. It says Annex 1, each state party shall develop, strengthen, and maintain the core capacities. It says to coordinate with and support the local level in preventing, preparing, and responding to public health risks and events, including in relation to surveillance, on-site investigations, laboratory diagnostics, including referral of samples, implementation of control measures, access to health services and health products needed for the response, risk communication, including addressing misinformation and disinformation, and then logistical assistance, examples, equipment, medical, and other relevant supplies, and transport. They're basically telling you that they are not only encouraging countries to have a response to whatever it is that they release and or implement, but that they're telling you that they're actually making it and that they want governments to make illness. That's what's also in this. So again, is that any different from anything else that's happened already? No. They're just, they're just continuing to do it. That's basically it. They're just telling you that they're going to continue to kick the can down the road, continue to do what they're doing. But, everybody's distracted with this subject or that subject instead of, again, putting their eyes on this. And the fact that, yeah, they did adopt a great deal of these measures and make them permanent. Again, they wouldn't be going to this length if they weren't going to do something. That's the whole point. So what are they going to do? I'm not sure. Are they going to manufacture something in the future? Potentially. What's going to cause it? I don't know. More wireless radiation potentially, cranking up the 5G and 6G up to 11? Could be. Could be a number of other things. I'm not entirely sure. And I'm not saying it to scare people. I'm just saying this again to make people informed. They're moving forward. And as I said earlier, until they cease to exist, they're going to keep moving forward. So don't believe any headline or anybody out there saying that the pandemic treaty didn't go through and nations didn't agree to it and this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter. Back in 2020, everybody took the WHO's advice, didn't they? That means there already is an agreement. And as I've said before and even read on the show, It's already law in the United States. It's already on the books. Medical tyranny is already legal in the United States. So again, if you want to take a closer look at this, and he has all the hyperlinks to all the documents, they're all right here in this article. I will link it in the description below so you can take a look at it if you're interested. Again, it's very thorough, and he's got all of it right here. He's got the resolution, the amended IHR resolution. He's got it all. So again, it's all right there if you're interested in taking a look. And one last thing here real quick, kind of a short episode today, my apologies, but Anthony Fauci is testifying on Monday. I believe that's still taking place. I will be watching that if that in fact does take place, and I will bring you some audio clips and analysis from that. It should be interesting. Of course, he's going to lie through his teeth, say that he did everything that he was supposed to do, and he was communicating with colleagues over email in an appropriate way, and blah, blah, blah. Again, every time he opens his mouth, it's a lie. But either way, assuming he actually does testify and doesn't cancel for one reason or another, I will bring that to everyone's attention for Wednesday and play a lot of that audio as well. Thanks for listening as always, everybody, and I'll catch you on Wednesday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.